I'm Dr. Ashley.
And this is Sherry.
And this is From Her Point of View.
All right. So, as we know, this season is all about sex. And we have decided to integrate somebody into our conversation that's going to help us facilitate that conversation, right? So, with us, we have Miss Shani Hart. Shani, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. I am a sex educator, a certified sex coach. I co-own Heart's Desires Erotic Boutiques. A lot of people call them adult stores, but we fancy, so we call them erotic boutiques.
All right, all right.
I own those with my husband, and I also founded a CBD company dedicated to Black women's pleasure called the Noir Leaf. So that's a little bit about me. Everything sex, all the avenues sex.
Okay, so what made you decide you wanted to get into this field?
It's funny. I've always liked talking to my friends about sex. I've always had a very adventurous sex life. I had a marvelous hoe phase before I met my husband. But when we first started dating, he already had one Heart's Desire store. And when we started dating, he felt that he had dated a lot of women in the past that were kind of scared of his line of work. And I'm like, ooh, child, free sex toys, count me in. And when I started dating him, this might sound a little crazy. So I might have a slight jealous streak sometimes. And a lot of the customers and people coming to the store were always women. So sometimes I would pop up at the store. I'm a pop-up queen. So I would pop up at the store. And eventually he was like, child, if you're going to be popping up here all the time, you might as well learn to work this cash register. So I started working in the store. And I learned all the toys, how to describe them. But then it was so many different women that would come into the store and ask me, not really about the toys, but what do I do about this part of my body? Or I have this problem sexually, or I have this problem with my partner. I'm like, these are all good questions. And I don't even know. I'm in my early 30s and I don't even know these answers. So that's when I went to school to be a sex educator. Then later on, once we got married, I was fully integrated in the company. We rebranded, we opened up a second store. I went back to get another certification to be a sexuality coach because I love talking to Black couples. And it's just gone from there. But it all started with dating my husband.
Well, that's good because I was going to ask you about how you integrated him into this. And actually, he brought you into it.
He did. And it's funny because I'm kind of like the mouthpiece. I do a lot of, our podcast. I do our events in person. I do our social media and stuff like that. And he doesn't like doing that stuff. He does it with me. Like we do Hump Day with the Hearts every other Wednesday where we go live, but I have to make him do it. But he's good at like working at the store and talking to the employees and doing the inventory. And he likes that part. So we both have found really the things that we like about the business together. So it really works good.
So how did you integrate the CBD products into the sexual stuff that you're doing right now? Because that's a little bit different, but it's also streamlined at the same time.
It came by accident. I keep falling into stuff. So when in 2018, CBD and hemp became legal on a federal level. So they was putting CBD in everything. All of a sudden on the market, CBD was in drinks, was in, shampoo, was in everything you could find. And it was in lube. So customers would start coming in the store and was like, hey, do y'all got CBD lube? I'm like, no, what's that? And I was like, okay, well, let me get the people what they want. So I would, order it from a couple of our wholesalers. And when women came back into the store and just told us how much it helped them, especially the people who had like painful sex and people who hadn't had pleasure in so long. And this like totally changed their sexuality, changed their life, changed how they thought about sex. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I started looking into CBD more. And once I realized it could help me personally with so many different things besides sex, because I'm somebody that suffers from anxiety a lot. I think most Black people in America, I think we suffer from anxiety. I had bad menstrual cramps. So the more I looked into CBD, I was like, I need to get this. So I started taking it, but then I realized that finding it was difficult, finding it in a way that was accessible to people of color. A lot of people of color, well, I hate when people say people of color. And I was just watching something where they kept saying people of color, Black people. I don't talk to people of color. I really, I love everybody, but I focus on
Disclaimer.
Black people. I love everybody. But when I would talk to my friends and talk to other people, I'm like, have you heard of CBD? Do you know it can help with this and help with this sort of pain and help with stress? And no one knew about it. But then I noticed in the different stores, the labels were confusing. It wasn't very accessible. A lot of it was very expensive. You really didn't know what you're getting. So that's when I decided to form my own company so I could educate Black people about CBD. So then when I first started the company, it was just CBD in general. I talked about sex, pain, anxiety, sleep, all the different things that people use CBD for. But people constantly wanted me to keep talking about sex. So I was like, okay, well, let me rebrand into a sexuality company. So now I specifically talk about how you can use CBD, all the same products, the tinctures, the gummies, the pain relief, but then I have CBD lube and massage oils and different things, an arousal oil, and focusing more on sex.
I like
So
that.
with CBD, there's a difference between CBD. Well, CBD is the compound in, the cannabis, right? So sometimes people will shy away from using the CBD because of the risk of maybe getting some THC in with it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the difference.
So the cannabis plant, when people say cannabis, it's the whole plant. Like
Right.
CBD is part of cannabis plant. THC is part of it. And there's a bunch of different other cannabinoids, but different CBD products are different parts of the cannabis plant. So let me just start from, if you took the cannabis plant and tried to extract the CBD and you took everything came with it when you were trying to extract that CBD, the THC, the other cannabinoids, essential oils, different terpenes, all that comes together. That's full spectrum CBD.
Mm-hmm.
But to be legal, it has to have less than 0.3%, which you would have to really ingest a lot of CBD for that to actually cause you to fail a drug test. You would have to fail a lot. But a lot of people need a good jobs. In the DC area, a lot of people got them good government jobs. So if someone is worried about failing a drug test, I tell them to stay away from full spectrum CBD.
Okay.
Then the next level down is broad spectrum CBD. So same thing, if we try to extract the CBD from the cannabis plant and we got everything else, but then we ditch the THC part. So it still has all the benefits of the rest of the cannabis plant besides the THC. That is broad spectrum. That is THC free. That's the kind that I use quite often. Then there's a CBD isolate, which is just CBD, doesn't have anything else of the cannabis plant, just CBD. That's fine too. It's not THC. So basically just stay away from full spectrum CBD products. And that's why it's important to read the labels. And some of the labels are super confusing. You don't know what you're going to get. It's important also when you're getting CBD to make sure that it is actually CBD and not hemp oil. That was a problem that I noticed, especially like if people go like the Whole Foods and Walgreens and buying different things online and it says hemp. You're like, okay, this is CBD. And then it's actually not CBD. And now and hemp oil does have some benefits, but it's not hemp seed oil. I'm sorry. Hemp seed oil does have some benefits, but CBD is from hemp flower, not from the seeds. So people get confused and people end up buying stuff that is not really going to give them the benefits that they want. And so it's important to get it from a reputable source, someplace like the Noir leaf.
Noir leaf.
And I applaud the fact that you're educated on the product. You're just not a businesswoman out here pushing something because it became popular. You actually took the time out to understand what it does, where it came from, how it's produced, to make your own brand so that when people do have these questions, because trust me, they have these questions, and you're right. they do shy away from it because the labels are confusing. It is hella expensive when you see it and you're like, I'm not paying for that, without the guarantee that it's going to do what you think it's going to do, when you're not even sure what it's supposed to do. You just do
Exactly.
what everybody says. So it's good to be able to have that product, but also be able to have the education behind the product. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I love reading about it. I have tons of books about CBD. I just love the power of this plant, cannabis plant in general, but in the DMV area, unless you have a medical card, you can't have your hands on THC products. Which I don't have a medical card. People always say, "Why don't you go get a medical card?" But I'm really in love with my CBD products. But it's really great to be educated on it. And for me, people always ask me, I have this condition, I have this issue, I have this issue. And 9 times 10, I'm like, okay, I can help you do this, kind of like how the grandmas would rub a little testing on it. I'm like, child, rub a little CBD on it. It just has the benefit of helping so many different people and it being natural. We keep pumping ourselves with all of these different prescriptions and over-the-counter medications. Like when I have super bad menstrual cramps, I'll be popping like 4 extra strength Tylenol, Advil at a time. But like those NSAIDs and all these different things, they cause so many different things to your body, ulcers and different lining to your stomach. It's just, oh my goodness, just so much where there are natural alternatives on the market. And a lot of times we don't go after them. And I love telling people you need to do this and be stress free and be pain free and also have better sex.
And that's the goal, to even be having it at all. And that's another topic for us. So when you have someone come to you and they say to you, I'm having a painful experience, where do you guide them with your CBD product?
So first I start asking questions like, how long has it been happening? Where is the pain at? Does it happen, right in the beginning of when you have sex? Is it after when you have sex? And most importantly, have you consulted a doctor about it? A lot of times, we have to be, especially Black women, we got to be the strong Black women. And a lot of times we put up with different pain and different things that make us uncomfortable because we feel like we just got to put up with it. No, you
push
don't.
through. Yep.
And when it comes to things that are going wrong down there, your vulva and your vagina, it's really important to seek a medical doctor. Is something that has been happening for a while, and learning to be an advocate for yourself and learning to find the right doctor, someone that when you go in there and you say, hey, it hurts when I have sex, they're like, well, we'll do this or do something, but not really getting to the bottom of the problem. And you're like, you walk away with no answers. It's super important to be an advocate so that you can get to a place where you can have pleasurable sex, where you can have the libido you want. A lot of people go to doctors, GYN and other medical doctors because they have a low sex drive. And they're like, I've tried this. I tried the toys, I tried the lubes, I tried creams, and nothing's helping me. And a lot of doctors might kind of just like shoo you off. But it's really funny because with people with penises, they go to a doctor, they're like, hey, my penis don't work. They got all sorts of things. Oh my goodness, the penis don't work. Let me give you this pill. Let me give this prescription. I got this booklet here. But when we go to a doctor and say, I'm having a lower sex drive, they want to just kind of shoo you off and be like, oh, well, maybe try this and not really give you any answers and not be overly concerned, where it is a concern. It's important. And we all are destined and should be having pleasurable sex lives, whether by yourself or with a partner.
Right.
Did you hear what she said, ladies? You got to be an advocate for yourself. It's very, very important. I think a lot of women are afraid to talk to even their OBGYN about these concerns because it's embarrassing. I actually had a friend reach out and she wanted me to ask just a little background story of her scenario. I don't want to say she's an older woman. She's older than her spouse.
Okay.
And by like 15 years. And so she's always had a high sex drive. Like that has never been her issue. But now that she's older and she's with this younger guy, it's not working the way that it used to work. She's not into it the way that she used to be into it. So she's like, is there something wrong with me? And I was like, well, I don't think so, but I'm not a doctor. But then you also have to consider that it's not going to be the same for where you were to where you are, but it's still possible. So for somebody in her position, and they seem very adventurous. I mean, I don't know their bedroom life, but they seem like they down for the cause. So for somebody who is down for the cause and having those issues where she's just not into it like she used to be, and then when it does happen, it's not as lubricated as she would want it to be. What's something that you would recommend from your product line for somebody like that?
Well, first, something that they don't have to buy is a deep breath. And just just take a deep breath and exhale and let it out, and know that it's natural. Like, it's nothing wrong with you. A lot of, when I'm counseling couples, especially counseling women, a lot of times it's just me giving them permission to feel the way they want to feel and know that it's they're okay. They're
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote normal. There's nothing wrong with you. These things happen. When we get older, especially when we get closer to menopause, our hormones change. Our sex drive is really dealing with our hormone levels. And there's so many different things that can change your hormone levels, different medications, premenopausal, pregnancy, post-pregnancy. It's all these different things that affect our hormone levels. So first off, just know that that is normal. And you might be able, someone that's getting older and it's like, oh, it doesn't work, everything doesn't work the way it used to. That's normal. And what you have to do is find new things that are going to make it work. So maybe trying new different things that are going to get you excited to have sex. I've never been into erotica before, and now that is like one of my go-to things to help me with my desire, because I have issues with desires too. A lot of people that have anxiety, especially during this pandemic and everything, we might need to do something extra to get our desire levels up, to get things going. And a lot of times we wait for our partners to help in that process. No, you got to turn your own damn self on. You have to learn the things that are going to make you feel excited. So that's the first thing I would tell somebody. One of the things that I love, that I use all the time for my CBD line, is a CBD arousal oil. So it comes in a little bottle with a dropper, and you put a couple drops on your clitoris, and it makes it tingly and warm, and it's pulling blood flow to your clitoris, which is going to make it more sensitive. So it's kind of like, to me, it feels like it's begging to be touched. So that is going to help with the arousal. When the more you're aroused, the more you're going to be able to self lubricate. But if you don't self lubricate, everybody wants a WAP, right? Ever since everybody wants a WAP. But guess what? You're not going to have a WAP all the time. No,
Shouldn't. You mean walking around dripping?
You don't want to walk around dripping. But there's lube. You can have something. You can have a WAP anytime you want to. Just drip some lube down there. And when you get older, the older you get, lubrication is going to slow down. And you can just pull out your handy dandy lube. I love my CBD lube. You're going to apply it vaginally. So with CBD, a lot of times it takes a little bit of time for it to be absorbed. So when people use a CBD lube and they put it on, they're like, well, I didn't feel anything. I had sex right away. I'm like, wait, you got to wait. On the directions says, wait about, 15 to 20 minutes for it to be absorbed. I like to call it a coochie marinade. You just got to let it.
All right.
And let it sit, because the CBD has to be absorbed into the body and do its thing. But while it's being absorbed, it's time for you to do some other things. You got to use your imagination. You could be by yourself, enjoying yourself. You could be with your partner, introducing some different sensual acts and foreplay and things like that. And then once the CBD is working, again, it's going to help with sensitivity. It's going to help with pain. It's going to increase pleasure. A lot of people have said that it makes them more orgasmic. It's easier to orgasm. So those are things that I would advise someone to use that has issues with desire and arousal and lubrication. Definitely a lube. Even if you don't use CBD lube, just lube in general. Trying different type of lubes and see which kind your body likes.
I like
Yeah.
what you said. The very first thing is just breathe for a second,
Breathe.
because you'll work yourself right on up out of pleasure.
We're so hard on ourselves. We're
Yeah.
so hard on ourselves sometimes. But we have all these things going on in the world. You got social media telling you how you're supposed to be. You got porn telling you how you're supposed to be. Sometimes we don't have partners that actually, want us to have pleasure. Sometimes we have to look at our partners like, is your partner really invested in your pleasure? Or is it really what you're doing just for them? So we have so many things to think about. It can make us hard on ourselves. And I'm like, first off, just breathe.
Mm-hmm.
and just know you're okay. And we can go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to take a step back, Ashley, if you don't mind. So I watched one of your YouTubes, and it was actually very educational to me. And it was the 5 things of sensual play.
Oh, yes.
And you talked about the difference between sensual play and foreplay and how it's just not the same. So, if you don't mind, I took some notes and we can kind of go through those 5 things, and you can elaborate a little bit more for our listeners. And listeners, you can go back to the YouTube page on your own time and you can listen to it. It's only like 12 minutes long, but it's very educational. And if you have someone in your life that you're intimate with and they're just not getting it, it's a quick 12-minute tutorial on get your life right. Okay. So the first one in sensual play and foreplay is that sensual play is more of an intimate thing, whereas though foreplay is a physical thing. It's the things you do before you have sex. Everybody's not going to be into foreplay, but everybody's into sensual play, whether they know it or not, right?
Yeah, and
So the
sensual play, I like to, because it can go hand in hand. I like to say sensual play because for some people, foreplay feels like I have to do something. Maybe I just want to have all the feels and everything that people have accustomed to be before sex. And that's all I need. Maybe I just want, a massage and a rub down and maybe some tickling, maybe some hugging, caressing, cuddling, and that's good. And I'm satisfied. So I like to say sensual play because it doesn't have, what's the word I'm trying to find? It doesn't have, it's not pressure. It relieves the pressure that it has to be, that it's just a means to an end. Because sometimes, especially women are like, I don't even want to start anything because I don't necessarily want to have penetrative sex, but I do want to have some sort of intimacy with my partner. But if I start it, then I'm going to have to do everything and I don't want to do everything. But you can just have sensual play and not have to get all in the kit and caboodle. Because sometimes I don't feel like doing all that. I'm tired. I don't want my legs up in the air. I don't want to be off. I don't want to do nothing. I just want to be close to you and be intimate with you on a level that is not with penetration.
okay, makes sense. So with sensual play, the first one that you pointed out was that it allows the couple, we'll say the couple, the spouse, whatever, it allows you and your partner to find out your likes and your dislikes. What we are learning is that a lot of people are in intimate sexual relationships with people and they have no idea what they like or what turns them on. They just kind of get into the groove of things and just pray for the best. And the reality is, like you mentioned, your toes. You don't like your toes being played with, but maybe he's into feet. So that's his thing. And you're cringing because he's playing with your toes. But when you have sensual play, you get to have those moments to say, I don't like that too much. Let's try this.
Exactly. And it's some time for compromise. So maybe I don't like my toes licked and sucked and everything, but maybe you can rub them. So, finding different ways that we both can be satisfied. But like you said, a lot of us don't know what the other person likes. I talk to so many people. It's like, oh, my partner is horrible in bed, and they don't do anything I like. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you like? They're like, well, what do you mean? What pleases you? What do you like? What are the things that you like done to you? Well, I mean, they don't know.
You
So how is
literally
he
moved
supposed to
it.
know? How's the other person supposed to know?
How's the other person? And I'm like, well, my last boyfriend, they did this, and that, and it worked wonders. But it's funny because sometimes I can have my last partner do move A, and then my next partner do the exact same move A, but maybe my lust levels or whatever's going on, or
Mhm.
maybe I have other issues in my life. Maybe work is bothering me more, or maybe I just had a child and things have changed, and move A don't do it no more. We have to figure out what we're going to do together that's going to make me feel good. And people have a hard time having these discussions about intimacy and sex. Like, people finally started talking about like money, like everybody's in the stocks now, and Bitcoin and all this different stuff. So we'll talk about all that stuff that used to be taboo, but we're still not talking about sex and intimacy. And that's one thing that I love also about using CBD, because it helps relax people and it helps with your anxiety levels. Doing some sort of consumption of CBD before you have to talk with your partner could put you in a way better mood. So both of you guys could be honest, vulnerable. It opens up the communication. I had this one couple, they wrote me on it. It was funny because both of them was on the email. It was like, this is such and such here. And this, I was like, this is weird, but okay, I'm here for it. And they had bought a set of my CBD pre-rolls, and they said they smoked it anticipating to actually have sex, but they just sat there and talked. And they both wrote to me and said it was the best conversation they ever had, because it just, smoking the pre-roll took all the stresses away, took their anxiety level down, took down, the chip on each other's shoulder, and they could just talk about it. And they said that it helped their sex life so much. And I'm like, yay. But we need to have these conversations, because if you're having bad sex, then it's your fault. It ain't nobody else's fault but you. And find out some sort of way to get the conversation going so you can get to a better place with your partner.
And so that takes me back to points 2 and 3, because with point 2, you said that it helps you to relax. So if you're not able to relax with your partner for one reason or another, the CBD products would actually come into play with that, along with the couple who you spoke to, where you have that sense of arousal, but there's no sex. So you can have all of that by just using the CBD products. It can open up the floodgates for the conversation, which takes us back to point 1, with you getting to know your partner, what they like and what they don't like.
Exactly. You have to find out some common ground. My husband and I, we did on our Heart's Desires YouTube, we did the art of compromise in the bedroom, and it was a really good live that we had, and just talking about different ways and different things that come up with couples and how to conquer these challenges that people have. But again, you have to get to the place that you're having the conversation to compromise.
Yeah. And you also made a point that with sensual play, it opens up for you to show appreciation to your partner. I think in the bedroom, a lot of people aren't getting their way per se because they don't feel appreciated by their partner, or, maybe they feel like their partner is not doing the things that make them feel good, but they're not doing it because they probably don't know.
They don't know. And I love attention in the bedroom. I love when I'm just being catered to and being massaged and rubbed. A booty massage. After a booty massage, I'm gonna do a lot of strange things after a good booty massage. But it makes me feel desired. It makes me feel that my partner wants me. It makes me feel like they actually want me to feel good, which is going to help with desire and arousal. It all goes hand to hand together in this whole sex arena. Like, one thing, if you don't have one building block, like, the whole thing is not going to work. I like to talk about like intimacy like it's a pie. So you have different slices of the pie, where sex is just one slice, But you have the other different parts like trust and honesty and vulnerability and compassion, and all these different parts make up the whole pie of intimacy. And if you don't have everything going together, it's just not going to be good.
Hmm. I agree completely. And so the last point that you made with that was that sensual play allows you to explore new things. So that is why we are speaking to Shani Hart today, because we are out here with our listeners trying to explore new things. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Dr. Taylor here because she has some more questions for you from our listeners.
So our
I'm ready.
listeners sent us some questions. Before I get to them, I like that analogy of the pie. That's a good, gives you a good visual. Also, the when we talked before about taking that deep breath and relaxing, and then also having the conversation. All these things need to happen before we get into that physical intimacy,
Yeah.
if we're even going to get to that physical intimacy. So, yeah, there's some building blocks that need to take place here.
If you wanted to, it could be you don't need all that. It's just a quick wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and you moving on. That's fine too.
Yep, and that will work too. All right,
Okay, moving on.
let's see what our listeners want to know from you. What is the best way to introduce toys to your partner?
Rule number one, do not bring a big old 12-inch dildo into the bedroom.
It's a little intimidating.
It's intimidating. But before we even get to that step, first is conversation. You know your partner better than me. So when people ask, how do I approach it? There's different ways you can approach it. It could be, if you're a straightforward person, you could be like, hey, I want to try this with you. And, everything might go good and go from there. You might have someone that needs their ego stroked a little bit, especially if your partner has a penis. A lot of times they're a little scared. I like to use a compliment sandwich. So I might start off with, I really love having sex with you. It's awesome. I would love you sneak something in the middle that you would like to change, you would like to try, you would like to do, and say, I would love to, bring a bullet or something into the bedroom. And then at the end, you'll finish it off with another compliment, like, because I love our relationship. I want us to stay together. I always want us to have fun in the bedroom. So putting the compliment sandwich together a lot of times is framing it in a way that they're not going to be defensive, because that's a lot of people, they think when you're talking about toys that it's they're not doing something right or they're lacking and you're not happy with them. And it might be you are happy with them, or it might be that you just want to add a different dimension of pleasure to your playtime and to your intimacy. But some people take that as an insult. So frame in a way that is not going to be defensive, using a lot of I statements. So don't say you this and you this. Like, I feel like I would like to try using I statements, keep it on
Mhm.
you. Third way that you can do is start the conversation is, kind of putting some feelers out. It's 2021. There's email, there's Facebook, there's social media. You could, forward them something that you saw and be like, subject line, what do you think about this? And, just put a little feeler out and see what they say, engage their interest. So that's another way. You could go on Heart's Desires YouTube, forward them one of our clips and be like, hey, here's this Black couple talking about how they use toys. What do you think about this? A lot of times people like watching the videos on our Heart's Desires page because they see my husband talking about stuff and they're like, okay, and he's a pretty big dude. He's like 6'4", almost 300 pounds, quote unquote, like a man's man. So like, okay, maybe I'll try it. He look cool.
Yeah, if he can do it, I can do it, right?
I can do it. So those are usually the ways that I talk about just easing in the conversation, because some people like surprises, some people don't like surprises. So just jumping out there with a toy, that might not be the way to go. But when you do figure out that you're ready to bring a toy in the bedroom, bring something that's going to be non-intimidating. If your partner has a penis, probably not something like a dildo or something phallic shaped, something small. I like to recommend a bullet, because a bullet is going to be small. It's not going to have a lot of different moving pieces. and you can use this in your sensual play. So when you're doing your massage, or you're doing your oral sex, you're doing whatever you're doing, you can use this bullet in so many different ways to, use it on different erogenous zones and move it around. You can give this to your partner, put them in action, give it to them and have them use it on you. So a lot of people like being involved instead of just watching you use it. And maybe later they'll get into that. But starting off, make sure that you're imparting them into using the toy in the play session, and that could help. So hopefully one of those things will get the job done, at least get the conversation going, and you can pull out a little toy.
Yeah, the way you described it, each one of those things makes it palatable. It's easy to digest. Just give you a little bit.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And here, you can have it. You can control it. You like that.
Exactly.
Okay. You got anything on that, Sherry?
Compromise sandwich is what I got.
I love the compromise sandwich. I use it I use the compromise sandwich in other than the bedroom. I use that on when I want to get something. I'm like, do I use it as I don't want to say I trick them into stuff, but it's a good way to get your point across and not offend people when you're trying to explain something, because we just have such a hard time communicating with each other these days. That's like the main problems that I always see. People, we're not hearing each other, or we're not framing things in the right manner to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And then also with conversations, you might have in your head that I'm going to have this great conversation with my partner. When they get home, we're going to talk about this and we're going to get everything laid on the table and it's going to end up great. And then it doesn't. You might have to revisit the conversation more than one time. You might have to come to them and say, hey, I want to talk about our intimacy and sex. I want to talk about how we can, make things better. And I want to talk about things I like that we do together. Is this a good time to talk to you about it? Or should we, put this pencil this in for another time? Because maybe you're all ready for it because you've been thinking about it all day. And they might have had a bad day at work. They might be hungry. They might be sleepy, whatever the case may be. And they just don't want to talk about it. So finding the time that both of you can sit down and have a great conversation is super important too.
And it's good that you say that, because communication is the breakdown. Communication is the solve for all the problems that a lot of people are having. They're not able to communicate. And what also with our listeners, what we learned is that we call it toy talk. A lot of people find that their partners become intimidated by the conversation, or the fact that, well, why do you want to introduce something else to what we're doing? And it's not because what we're doing is bad. It's just because maybe that person just wants to try different things. And so you're right, having that conversation in your head and then out loud may not be the same, but don't give up, ladies. You can still do it.
Don't give up. And just a lot of when it comes to pleasure for us as women, it boils down to anatomy. Like most of us do not have orgasms from penetrative sex, but most of us, that's all we're doing is penetrative sex. 80% of all women don't have orgasms from penetrative sex. I'm one of them. I need clitoral stimulation. The clit, that is the mecca of pleasure. That is where it needs to be focused at, so that we can get our orgasms, get our pleasure. And a lot of times, especially if your partner is a guy, they're not extremely focused on that. So even explaining to them like, hey, I really get a lot more pleasure when I'm having some clitoral stimulation while you're having sex. And then maybe once they see you, you can even start with just using your hand, using their hand, and without a toy first, and showing that when you are having sex and when you do stimulate the clit, that they're going to tell like, oh my goodness, I'm getting a different reaction from her. This is great. She actually likes it now. and then you might not have to fake it. How about that? And
that's another conversation.
Right. How about that? But just explaining to your partner about your body, and again back to what it is that's going to give you pleasure, and be like, hey, while we're having sex, wouldn't it be handy if you had something that you could just hold on your clitoris, that hold on my clitoris, that's going to vibrate and it's going to make me feel good and it's going to bring me pleasure. Most of the time, if your partner really wants you to feel good, they're going to be like, okay, I like the way you explained that. It's not about me, it's about your body and what's going to make you feel good. Let's try it. So a lot of times educating them about our bodies and the way it's set up and our clitoris and just knowing what exactly different areas in your body is going to bring your pleasure, that's going to help also.
Yeah.
You said something in the video too that I actually took note of. You said that arousal elongates the vagina for women. So if clitoral stimulation is your thing, right? That is going to arouse you to have a better experience with your partner because it kind of opens up everything like, okay, something great is happening down here. Let's, free for all with it. But if you're not having that, like if you're not getting that proper arousal, whatever that may be for you, the vagina is kind of like, not today, buddy. Like you could do what you want to do, but I ain't really into it.
Exactly. It's our body naturally is gonna, when you're aroused, is naturally gonna respond. Your vagina is gonna start lubricating. Like you said, it's gonna elongate because it expects something might come in there. Your heart starts to beat faster. There's so many things that our body does naturally when we're aroused. And when you don't take the time to get aroused, and that doesn't happen, the sex is not going to be pleasurable. And so that's why I really encourage people to spend a lot of time on arousal period. So think about sex like going from 0 to 100. If you go from 0 to 80 in the arousal period, then you only got to go from 80 to 100. Instead of going all the way from 0 to 100, you start off like I like to say, when you're going, before you have sex, your body should feel like I'm begging you to, to do whatever it is next, whether it's put it in, whether it's put your mouth on it. I should be pumped up and ready and just be like, oh my goodness, I want to have it now. That's when it's going to be really great. But we don't give ourselves chance and long enough time to be aroused.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
That's good.
I like that. Listeners, are you listening? Listen, this is good stuff.
We're gonna have to do probably a bit of education on the anatomy itself, because we assume that women know how their bodies are made up, and they don't.
Yeah.
And we
So.
talked about that. They don't, because we're not talking about it. No one's communicating how it's supposed to be. We just take it for what it is, and we just lay there like a slab of meat sometimes, and we do. Like a slab of meat sometimes, and we're getting pounded into the bed. So, and I'm not saying that that's everybody. I'm just saying we have had experiences. If you've slept with more than one person, you have had that experience.
I know I have. I've had bad experience. If I had known what I know now, back when I was in my 20s, I would have been getting my whole life in the bedroom. I got it a little teeny bit, but it wasn't until I got older. But I wish I had known then what I know now. But I love like conversations like this. And when you're talking to your friends, because we as women, we have a lot of guilt. We have a lot of shame when it comes to sex. And one of the things is shame lives in silence. The more we talk about this, so I could be talking about you, like I don't have orgasm penetrative sex. And then when I say that, people are like, oh my God, I don't either. I thought it was just me. I thought something was wrong with me. But the more we talk about it and we share our experiences with each other, that's when it's going to get better. So I love these sort of conversations.
And that's why season 3 is dedicated to sex talk, because it was requested. We realized that people aren't talking about it, and they should. And like you said, if you're having bad sex, that's your fault. Like, because there's so many resources out there to get you and your partner to a better level, but don't be ashamed to talk about it. Don't be ashamed to express where you are in that space. So we want to open up the conversation and actually get people like yourself who know about it to talk about it.
I know a little bit. Well,
you're giving us the tea, so we
That's
appreciate
it. Let's try. Let's go to another question. Is it wrong to assume that there is a lack of excitement or trouble in paradise between a couple if one asks to invite another person or persons into their bedroom for a sexual exchange? That's a
That's a
does that
loaded
did that
one.
make sense? You got the question there?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, it's really going to be based on the couple. My husband and myself, we're swingers, so we have sex with other people sometimes, but it's something that we both want to do. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that actually, when we met, we both already liked doing, so it just worked out. But if you're someone that wants to, experiment with different partners and, have threesomes or have play parties or orgies, whatever the case may be, if your partner is not into it, then it's a problem. That's the only time it's a problem. If you bring it up like, hey, I would like to invite another person in our bedroom, or hey, let's go to a swinger party or whatever the case may be. And they're like, I'm down. Let's go. Let's do it. Then it's not a problem. But
Mhm.
if they're like, nah, I never want to do that. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's morally sound, or whatever the case may be, then it's a problem. So I when I talk to different couples about anything sexually, different sex positions, different things they want to do, toys, different kinks that they want to try, whatever the case may be, there's nothing wrong as long as there's two consenting adults and it's legal. There's nothing wrong. It's just that both partners have to agree that this is what we want to do together.
And you have to decide, is that a deal breaker? Because if that's something that you're into and you want to experience that with other people at one time, and this particular person does not, you have to decide, is that a deal breaker? Do you stay in this relationship yearning to be in the swinger lifestyle per se? Or do you just go to the lifestyle that you want? Like, you have to decide for yourself what that looks like.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's also, if you're, again, with compromise, if your partner is like, no, I'm not down with that, like, what type of things can we do to role play? Like, when we're in, but can you pretend you're somebody else? Can you put on a wig, or can you use a different voice, or whatever the case may be? Doing different things that's going to make it feel different, using different toys that are going to make your partner feel different, using your imagination. Sometimes there are some things that you might be able to compromise in, and that might just be enough. It might just been like, you just had a hankering for it, you just wanted to try it, and that was like, oh, okay, that got the itch off my back, I'm good now. And so figuring out what you can do that you both will enjoy, again, is something that you could try.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
like
then
that.
in the question, they were asking, is it wrong to assume or think that there's trouble if one wants to bring somebody in? And so that's not the case. If somebody wants to incorporate other people into your sexual experience, it doesn't mean that something's wrong or there's trouble in paradise or I'm not satisfied with you. It's just this is an experience that I would like to have.
Yeah, correct. I'm not a poly person. My husband and I like to consider myself to be monogamish.
Mm-hmm.
And people are gonna like what they're like. I don't feel that one person has to be with the same person forever, but there's other people that feel like that is the only way they want to live their life. So if I definitely don't think there's anything wrong, because I'm someone that practices that lifestyle. And I love my husband. And even in the swinger lifestyle, if we're having issues in our relationship, we don't do anything with anybody else. Like, we have to be 100% good. I remember this one time, this was quite a few years ago. It was this bomb New Year's Eve swingers party we were supposed to go to. It was downtown at a fancy hotel. You had to sign an NDA agreement before you went, so you knew it was going to be good. That was going to be a good party. But we had been arguing like the past 2 or 3 days before that. We were not in a good place. So, as upset as I was about missing that party, it just wasn't a right fit. We couldn't go because we weren't together. So it's only a problem when people break other people in relationships to kind of take the place of their partner, or they're not getting 100% for their partner, so they're going to get 40% from somebody else, and because they feel like they have to. I get 100% from my partner I might get 30% extra on certain nights, but I still got 100% from him. So I feel it's only a problem if you're trying to make up for something that you're lacking in your relationship.
That's a good point too, because a lot of people are bringing other people into the relationship because instead of communicating with their partner what's not happening, you figure that Sally from up the street is going to do it a little better. And that's not the way to go.
Exactly.
You just had to have that conversation. That's where the communication comes right back in there again. We need to talk about this.
Exactly.
We have a question here about positions for female sexual pleasure. The best positions.
Hmm.
So let's talk about the positions and incorporating some other things into that.
Because inquiring minds want to know.
Okay. So position wise, usually missionary position is not going to be the best for us to have pleasure, but it can be good for using toys. So using when your partner, I like missionary position just because I like the eye contact and the intimacy that brings. I just love eye contact. Something about it. It just makes me wet. But my partner can hold something on my clit, a toy on my clit. I like something like a magic wand because it has a long handle, and it's if you're someone that has like a lot of cushion for the pushing, that means sometimes my food pie is it getting away. It's something that's going to have a longer handle, something a little bigger that you can get past all the cushion and get it on your clitoris. That helps. So I do like missionary position. Um, a lot of women have great success with being on top. And we think that it's giving the penis more access, but what it is usually when a woman is on top, it's giving you more clitoral stimulation. So you're
Mhm.
actually doing more grinding of your clit on your partner and controlling the motion. And they're like, and the if your partner is a guy, he's like, oh yeah, I'm really getting in it. No, I'm just grinding like on your pubic bone and grinding. So it's still clitoral stimulation. That with or without toys, that's a great position to be in. But with a toy, again, you can hold on your clitoris. It's a good chance for someone to use a toy on your nipples. You could just sit back and you could be grinding. Your partner can be using a vibrator or some nipple clamps or anything like that. I like vibrating nipple clamps now. I didn't used to like nipple clamps before. And it's funny, as you get older, things change. My nipples didn't used to be very sensitive, but now they're getting more sensitive. So I like my nipples played with when I'm on top. Um, Doggy style is one of my favorite positions to use toys because I'm lazy. I don't like holding stuff. I don't like doing stuff. I just want to sit there and like all the pleasure be on me. So my husband, I'm doggy style. My husband's behind me, going to town back there, and then he's holding some sort of toy and holding on my clit. So I'm just sitting there in ecstasy and getting all the good feels, and I'm not really doing too much. I mean, I'm throwing it back a little bit. Let me not make it seem like I'm just totally lazy, like I'm just sitting there.
Or a slab of meat, like Sherry
Like
called
a
it a while ago.
I'm still throwing it back some, but I'm getting a lot of pleasure from my partner. A lot of people have greater access to their G spot in like a doggy style position than missionary position. So that also helps if you're someone that can have that spot access by your partner. And that depends on position and also their penis size and angle and things like that. But sometimes that position helps.
What about butt plugs?
She just came out. No, what about butt plug?
Toy
I
talk. Let's
never
talk
did.
about it.
So yeah, let's talk about it.
So I enjoy butt plugs while having sex. So I like layers of pleasure. So I enjoy vibrating butt plugs. So if you have a vibrating butt plug in your butt while you're having sex, so then you have vibration like coming from everywhere. And your partner, if they have a penis, they can also feel the vibration. So vibrating butt plug during sex is awesome. But people use butt plugs to either train their butt to accept bigger things. People use it just for the feeling of fullness. because you could walk around with the butt plug in, and some people like that feeling. You can have the butt plug in. Sometimes I have one in while I'm masturbating. Just it just gives me a different sensation. So you can use butt plugs for many different things, whether it's just to train your butt or it's whether to add pleasure.
So we got bullets, which are the small, for the most part, they're small vibrating toys.
Yeah.
You have the butt plugs. You have the vibrating nipple clamps, which sounds extremely interesting. And
Said a
then
magic
have
wand.
you, and the magic wand, and the magic wand.
That's like the most famous sex toy, the magic wand. Have you heard of it? It's like it's a long wand. I usually had it. Oh, it must be in the bedroom. I
Does
was
it
like, I
have
usually had it.
something on the end of it that's round? Like,
Yes.
okay.
So it has a plastic handle, and then it has a round ball at the
Yeah.
top, and it's super
Oh,
powerful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's like the most popular sex toy ever. It's been around
It's
for ages.
popular because the kids can find it and they have no idea what it
They
is.
have no idea what it is. And probably our grandmother might have had one. That's how long it's been around.
Mhm.
But things like that, I like that one because, like I said, it has a long handles. It's easy to use, especially if you're someone that is of a bigger size. It's helpful. So plugs. Then we have like different couples toys that I like. Things that are actually made because sex toys in general, even if they're not specifically made to be couples toys, all of them are couples toys because you can use them while you're with your partner in so many different ways. But there are some that specifically are for you to use with your partner. One of my favorite ones is, I guess, it's 2021. So we have all the technology. So app control toys. That's I
Mhm.
really love. It's one called the Phoenix that I love. It's inserted in vaginally. It's a G spot toy, and then your partner can control it with the app on their phone. So as long as you could be anywhere in the world, as long as you're connected to the internet, they can control it. So I use it a lot when I go out of town. I also use it. It's fun for discreet public play. So you could just be out walking around looking at the museums. I We use it a lot when I go to dinner, and I'll have it in and he'll sit there because it's very inconspicuous because
Right.
everybody plays on their phone nowadays. Where some vibrating panties have the remote is like a ring that you put on your finger, and so people know like why they hitting this big ring on their finger. But if it's controlled by the app, you're controlling with your phone, and we have a lot of fun with that, and it's helping me get aroused because by the time we get he didn't play with me all through dinner, so by the time we get home, as soon as we hit the door, it's on. And then also this one, the Phoenix, it also has a way to sync with like Pornhub and different porn websites. There's some that have interactive videos. So you would search for interactive videos, pick one you like. It's a QR code comes up on the screen. You take a picture of the QR code, and then all of the action in the video, that's the way that the toy is going to vibrate. So it's so fun. I love it. I use that a lot by myself to help me warm up or whatever the case may be, or just to have fun. Sometimes I just like looking at the different videos and doing it. So couples toys, especially the app control ones, are really, really popular these days. And if you're someone that's like, I'm not sure what type of toy I would like, especially if your partner likes technology. They like new stuff. They like gadgets. That's something that probably they could get into. So they got to download the app on the phone and learn how to use it. That's something that's super popular with a lot of men coming in and buying it for their partners.
Yeah, that's a good way to integrate it without being intimidating or, causing a problem or anything. You just you know, hit some buttons on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in control.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good also that if you have a local dog store near you, going in together and looking at things and picking out something together. That's an awesome date night. Pick out something, go to dinner, you probably still talking about everything you saw in the store. And then when you go home, try it out. That's a good date.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Or if you don't feel like going to the store, you're not comfortable going in the store, just sit there and look online together and just pick out some things. So when you integrate both people together in the action of picking it out, that helps.
So does your stores sell lingerie?
We do. We have
Okay.
lingerie, sizes small to 4X.
Okay. That's good to know. So while we're on that, so we don't forget, tell our listeners where you're located.
We have one store in Suitland, Maryland on St. Barnabas Road. And then we have a second store on 18th Street. I just had a brain fart. I was like, what street is on? 18th Street in the Adams Morgan neighborhood. And both the addresses you can find on the website, heartsdesires.com.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
Listeners, you catch that? Okay, good.
And of course, that'll be in the description as well. So you don't have to write it down while you're listening. Gather that information. So let's see. We had another question here.
I like that
Talking about-
integration.
Mhm.
With the integration, how we talked about integrating the toys into the relationship, because people want to and they just don't know how.
Mhm.
And people are just looking for new ways to connect, new ways to have fun. People just now are starting to get back out again. But especially like last year we sold the most toys ever. 2020 was the best year ever because a lot of couples, they were looking for ways to connect. A lot of couples, they were stuck in a house together. And that's when they got to the point that was like, you know what? I don't even know what you like. And I don't you don't know what I like. And some couples like, I don't even know if I actually like you. Because when you take away the distractions and you actually have to be with the person, either you're gonna want to work on it or you're not. So I know a lot of relationships that broke up from COVID, and some of them that just got like tremendously better because they worked at it and finding out new ways to bring pleasure. Because especially in times like this where a lot of things are also so, everything's going on, and sometimes you're worrying about your health, you're worrying about your family's health, you're worrying about your job. There's so many things that are bad going on in the world. You're looking for pleasure any way you can get it, and having it with your partner is going to be really good. And especially now that a lot of people are touch deprived, so because we're not hugging each other, we're not
social distancing.
Yeah, all the social distancing. So we had, massage oil, the sales massage oil just went through the roof because you want someone to touch you. Like that's really all you want. That's why massages and foot rub and booty rub, I love that because I just want someone to put hands on me, because everywhere I go, no one can touch me. You got to stay away from people, your friends, your family. So being close with your partner was so important in these times that a lot of people were experimenting with new toys and new things and new positions and just seeking new things out that they could do together.
It's funny that actually came up at our vision board party when we were asking our listeners, plotting out for 2021 vision and asking our listeners, like, what do you want to talk about? And they were like, bringing the spice back during COVID. Like, we've been together and we're here and it's not popping. Like, how do we get this going again? So I'm glad to hear that it was so lucrative for you in 2020.
It was touch and go for a minute at first, but then it just blew up.
That's good. That's good. We're making progress.
Yeah, from like March to June, both of our stores were closed. So our employees weren't there. It was hard because the store is closed, but you still got to pay utilities. You still got to pay the lease. You still have to do all these things. So it was nerve-wracking, but everything worked out.
All right, I think we'll do one more question and then we'll wrap up. Here's our question. Should women question a man's sexuality that likes to be penetrated? He identifies as being heterosexual, but he likes to be penetrated.
Look here. If I had a prostate, so prostate is, a lot of people call it the P spot. We have a G spot, men have the P spot. If I had an actual P spot in my butt, I would have stuff in my butt all the time. Like it's so easy to have pleasure, for men to have pleasure from having their prostate stimulated. But because of man law violations, the way society does, and a lot of it is us. putting
Mhm.
on them. A lot of men that I talk to, they want to try it. They don't know how to bring up the conversation with their partner because they don't want to be looked at as gay. And I'm like, well, that's tough. Like a lot of times I don't have any answers because we just been conditioned and brainwashed that if somebody wants to explore their anus and they were born a man, that's gay. And that's not the case. It's not the case. You can totally be a heterosexual man and enjoy anal penetration from a toy, from your partner pegging you, which is your you would wear a harness and have, whatever size dildo they liked, and you would actually penetrate them anally with the dildo. They might like analingus, which is just licking around the anus. All these different things, they're pleasurable. And but it takes a relationship where you could be honest, where you could be vulnerable, where you can actually talk about your desires and your wants with your partner without feeling like they're going to throw it back in your face later or they're going to hold it against you. And it's tough. A lot of times I don't have the answers to tell people what to say because I don't know, and I don't want to get cussed out later. Like, my wife left me. She packed up all my stuff. I mean, it's nothing at all wrong with it. I wish that there was more conversation with, especially Black men, heterosexual Black men, about it being okay. But all you see is stuff in the media, stuff on social media, stuff everywhere that is not, and that means they must want to be gay. They must be closeted gay. They must be DL. And none of that could be the case. It could be that they just was once a different type of pleasure because I don't have one, but I've heard it's amazing.
And that's why they're asking about it. And then it goes back to that pie you were talking about with the intimacy. You have to be able to trust your partner. You got to be able to talk to them. You got to be able to be vulnerable with them. And that's the thing that I agree. We don't make space for our Black men to be vulnerable with us.
Right. We don't. But it's funny because we say all the time, I want you to talk to me. I want you to be vulnerable. I want you to tell me your feelings. And then when they do, they're like, you
Mm.
gay. It's
Mhm.
like, come on, you can't have it both
Right.
ways.
You want me to talk or not?
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that men and women, because I've had conversations with men about the experience, whether they've had it or not. And they're like, no, 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 all wrong, bad, bad, bad. And I'm like, well, why? Because once I was educated that that's what it is, the prostate in the anus, I could understand why a man would want that. And ultimately, that's probably why a lot of gay guys be so happy, like because they getting it on a regular and it's amazing, right? But that's separate from a heterosexual man wanting it, having that experience. And then okay, it's like, and I'll just put it out there, it's like having a finger in your butt, right? As a woman, you've never known that until somebody slipped their finger in your butt and you're like, damn, that was amazing. Now you want it all the time. Doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. You had the experience, it was amazing, and now you want it all the time. But if society said that, oh, no, 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 bad finger in the butt, you would be second guessing yourself to say, okay, well, I like that, but I can't do that because society says it's wrong. And in reality, it's not.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to be a shift because, like, just like you saying the finger in the butt, that was taboo as hell before. Us talking about sex, like how we are now, was taboo. So I have been seeing shifts that keep moving into a very positive and forward direction when it comes to sexuality and sex education. Sometimes I go to Howard University and talk about sex with when I'm invited to speak, and the things that the college students know and the things that they're open to talk about, I'm like, wow. So just there is definitely progress and movement of what people talk about, and I'll be glad when it gets to the point that everyone can just be comfortable being in their sexuality, whichever way that comes and however they want to live it, and just feel comfortable. I don't know if it's going to be in our lifetime. Hopefully it will, but I would be very happy to see that day.
Yeah, we definitely have to keep the platform open so the conversations can be had because, like you said, about living in silence, like we don't have to live that way. We don't have to be ashamed. You can be free with who you are, with what you like in life, and that's just that. And it goes back to not having to explain yourself to anybody. If that's
Exactly.
what you're into, that's what you're into. Nobody has to wake up and go to sleep to you every night but you.
Exactly. That's what I said. Everybody needs a whole phase. Everyone needs a good old whole phase. When people think about like that, it's just about just being quote unquote promiscuous or whatever. No, in my whole phase, I learned so much about myself, what I was going to put up with. I didn't care what nobody thought. I learned a lot about my boundaries with my romantic partnerships, with my non-romantic relationships and things like that. Everyone needs to have a good whole face.
Amen. I think we've covered everything that we really wanted to touch on tonight. I'm so grateful that we were able to have this conversation with you. You brought so much energy and so much knowledge for us to share with our listeners. We really appreciate it.
Ah, thank you for having me. I had a great time.
So tell our listeners again how you can be reached.
Two best places to reach me is going to be, well, same platform on Instagram. So the two pages to reach me on is at Sex Stuff with Shani, and the other page is at Heart's Desires. So at Heart's Desires is going to be more toys and relationship talk, and you'll see a lot more of my husband. At Sex Stuff with Shani is going to be more just me acting a fool and talking about cannabis and pleasure.
Okay. And your website is?
I have a million. I have I have ShaniHart.com, the noirleaf.com, and heartsdesires.com. I got a lot going on.
We got a lot. It'll be in the description. You'll get that. All right. So you got anything else, Sherry?
No, I just want to say thank you so much because our listeners are really looking forward to having this conversation and being able to have the platform to ask these questions anonymously, to be able to bring that to someone who can address it and have that toy talk because it's important. Like, it could literally be the game changer for relationships if people would just be honest with what they want, what they don't want, and just having that conversation to integrate these things if possible or needed into the relationship. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to From Her Point of View, the show curated specifically for women by women, covering a wide range of topics. Though this is from her point of view, we want your point of view too. Become a part of the show. Questions, comments, and feedback are welcome through Instagram and Facebook, where we post regularly. Email us at fromherpointofviewllc@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail at 443-507-8032. Tune in weekly and please share with your family and friends as we can be found on your favorite platforms: Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Thank you for listening to From Her Point of View.